the idea that refused to die. It began as a forgotten concept buried inside a notebook, a sketch, a phrase, a spark too strange, too bold, too early for its time. Most ideas fade when the world ignores them, but this one didn't. It lingered, pulsed, and clawed its way back into the light, refusing to disappear. Every era has a breakthrough that almost never happened, a creation that should have failed, should have been dismissed, should have been lost to dust and memory. Yet somehow it survives, not because of luck, but because it carries a truth the world isn't ready to hear. And today, when innovation moves at impossible speed, we live surrounded by ideas that won't stay buried. To understand one of these rare survivors, we enter the story of a billionaire who spent years trying to abandon a vision that kept returning. The idea emerged in youth, a bold, eccentric concept that drew ridicule instead of admiration. Investors laughed. Mentors warned against it. Even the creator tried to let it go, believing the world had spoken clearly, but the idea refused. It followed through every chapter of life, resurfacing in quiet moments, during long flights, late-night walks, or sleepless hours staring at a ceiling filled with possibilities and doubts. The creator felt its pull like gravity, a weightless insistence that something monumental was waiting on the other side of fear. The reveal began when new technology finally made the impossible plausible. Suddenly, the idea was not a dream, it was a blueprint. What was once dismissed as madness now looked like foresight. The billionaire hesitated, knowing the cost of resurrecting such an ambitious concept, but the idea had waited long enough. The project launched quietly at first. A small team, a small lab, a small budget, but every breakthrough breathed life into the old vision, turning sketches into prototypes and doubts into momentum. The creator watched with a mixture of awe and dread as the idea transformed into something real, something powerful. Yet beneath the excitement, an unease began to grow. The idea wasn't just coming to life, it was taking the lead. The momentum accelerated faster than anyone predicted. What began as a quiet experiment started attracting attention from unexpected places: researchers, competitors, government agencies. The idea, once ignored, now stood at the center of a growing storm. The billionaire felt the shift immediately. This was no longer a passion project. It was becoming a force with consequences far beyond the original vision. The reveal deepened when early prototype tests exceeded all expectations. Engineers celebrated breakthroughs that seemed impossible just months before. The small lab expanded into multiple facilities. Teams worked around the clock, driven by the energy of unlocking something world-changing. But with every success came a new problem. The idea demanded more funding, more talent, more risk. Suddenly, the billionaire realized the project was consuming resources at a pace that made investors uneasy. Board members questioned its viability. Advisors urged caution. But slowing down felt dangerous, as if the idea itself might collapse or slip away if not pursued relentlessly. The billionaire pushed forward, driven by instinct rather than strategy. This created cracks beneath the surface. Longtime partners began distancing themselves. Competitors filed strategic patents to block progress. Regulators requested documents with unsettling frequency. Something about the project triggered fear. Fear of disruption. Fear of power. Fear of what would happen if the idea succeeded. Inside the company, early conflict emerged. Some employees believed the idea would transform entire industries. Others feared it could destroy the company if anything went wrong. And in the middle of it all stood the billionaire, pulled between loyalty to the vision and responsibility to the empire that funded it. Tension rose when a critical test malfunctioned. The failure wasn't catastrophic, but it exposed vulnerabilities that had been ignored in the race to progress. The media caught wind of it, publishing speculative articles questioning the billionaire's sanity and the project's legitimacy. Investors panicked. Meetings escalated into shouting matches. The once quiet idea now echoed through every corner of the business. The billionaire felt the pressure closing in. Nights grew longer. Doubts grew louder. The idea had returned from the shadows with unstoppable force. But now the world demanded proof, accountability, and perfection. And the cost of failure was rising with every beat. The conflict ignited when the project moved from controlled labs into real-world trials. This was the moment everyone had feared, the point where theory met reality, where every flaw became visible, where the idea could no longer hide behind optimism or potential. The billionaire watched as teams prepared for the launch, each carrying a mix of excitement and dread. The air felt electric, but unstable, like a storm building with no clear direction. The first public demonstration malfunctioned in front of a live audience. Not disastrously, but enough. Enough for headlines to ignite. Enough for competitors to smirk. Enough for investors to question everything. Within hours, the story spread across the world. The visionary billionaire had overreached. The impossible idea was still impossible. Inside the company, panic sharpened into blame. Departments accused each other of oversight failures. Engineers defended their work. Managers demanded answers the data couldn't yet provide. The billionaire walked through halls thick with tension, realizing how quickly belief turns to fear when uncertainty takes hold. The emotional weight grew unbearable. For years, the idea had been a quiet companion, a dream waiting for its time. Now it felt like a runaway force destroying the very empire built to support it. The billionaire questioned every choice. Was resurrecting the idea a mistake? Was the vision clouded by nostalgia, ego, or desperation to prove the world wrong? But the conflict only deepened. Regulators announced surprise inspections. Several key partners paused their contracts. A major competitor leaked a prototype alarmingly similar to the billionaire's design, hinting they would beat the idea to market. What was once a bold pursuit now felt like a race against extinction. If the project failed, the entire empire could fall with it. The billionaire's inner circle fractured further. Some pleaded to shut the project down, calling it a sinking ship. Others begged to double the budget and accelerate development. Both paths carried ruin. And in the war of opinions, one truth became clear. The idea had grown too big for conventional choices. It demanded a sacrifice on a different scale. The emotional breaking point came during a midnight review of the latest failure reports. Alone in a cavernous office, the billionaire stared at the project's data projections. They told the same story over and over. The idea could work, but not with the current structure, not with the current timeline, not with the current safeguards. To move forward meant risking the empire. To stop meant betraying the idea that refused to die. The pressure built to its peak, a crushing weight that made the next decision feel like standing at the edge of a cliff with the wind pushing forward. The reckoning was coming, and the idea was demanding its ultimate test. The climax arrived the moment the billionaire made a choice no one expected. Instead of shutting the project down or accelerating recklessly, the billionaire dismantled the entire structure surrounding it. The labs, the teams, the reporting chains, all dissolved and rebuilt from the ground up. What had started as a corporate initiative was reborn as an independent division, autonomous, agile, shielded from the pressures that had suffocated its progress. The announcement stunned the company. Some called it madness, others called it brilliance. But the billionaire understood one truth. An idea ahead of its time cannot grow inside the walls built to serve the present. It needed space, freedom, and a new rhythm. And so, with a decision that rippled across industries, the billionaire risked reputation, capital, and legacy to give the idea a second life. The new team, smaller, sharper, driven by conviction instead of deadlines, worked with renewed purpose. And slowly, the impossible shifted toward the achievable. Tests stabilized. Prototypes performed. Even regulators softened as the division demonstrated transparency and competence that the chaotic early stages had lacked. Then, after years of struggle, the breakthrough arrived. A flawless demonstration. A working system. Proof that the idea the world mocked now had the power to reshape entire industries. The billionaire watched as applause filled the room, but the victory felt different this time. Quieter, deeper, earned through fire instead of fortune. The world reacted with shock and awe. Analysts rewrote their predictions. Competitors scrambled to catch up. would have been dismissed as a foolish obsession was now hailed as visionary resilience. And through it all, the billionaire felt a profound sense of release. Not pride, not vindication. Something simpler. Peace. Because the idea had never been about glory. It had been a calling. One that demanded patience, sacrifice, and faith long after the world stopped believing. And by refusing to let it die, the billionaire had proven something greater about innovation itself. The future belongs not to the loudest vision, but to the one that endures.